Hello and welcome to this three-part series looking at athletic development in secondary schools. My name is Jack and I'm a strength and conditioning coach based out of Bristol and the Southwest. So the purpose of this presentation is to explore and educate on the topic of integrating athletic development into secondary schools. There are of course a number of training components to consider with athleticism, but I'll be focusing predominantly on resistance training and just some aspects surrounding this. The reason I've chosen resistance training is quite simply because it's one of the most dominant components of an athletic development model. And if I was just to give a brief definition on that, resistance training refers to the specialized method of conditioning which involves the progressive integration of a wide range of resistive loads and training modalities designed to enhance sports performance and recreational exercise. The audiences that I think will benefit the most from this presentation are current practitioners within the field, teaching staff and sports coaches currently working within secondary education. Finally, I appreciate there are schools around the country that are successfully championing this approach. This presentation is not an attempt to refute what is currently being practiced, but merely my perspective based on my experiences of how one may integrate an athletic model into their secondary education. So let's get stuck in. So firstly, I just want to detail what we're actually going to look at in the first part of this presentation. So firstly, we're going to look at just some of the terminology and hopefully eradicate some confusion around some of the jargon that is used within the industry. Secondly, we just want to look at some of the common obstacles that teachers or coaches are faced with when looking to implement an athletic model into their schooling system. And then finally, just look at some of the recent findings that hopefully relax any uncertainty around youth athletes performing resistance training, and also just looking at some successful stories about schools that have actually managed to implement an athletic model. Okay, so just looking at some terminology that is used within this field. So working from the top down here, so youth athletes include both children and adolescents, but with children that's typically up to the ages of 11. Adolescence is girls between 12 to 18 years and boys 14 to 18 years. Growth refers to changes in body composition, either the size of the body as a whole or the size of specific regions of the body. Maturation refers to qualitative system changes, both structural and functional, in the body's progress towards adulthood. Adaptation refers to changes in structure or neuromuscular properties. And finally, PHV or peak height velocity is a somatic biological maturity indicator and reflects the maximum acceleration of growth during adolescence. So, firstly, just looking at some of the common obstacles that sports coaches and teachers are probably going to come up against. So the first one is a games-based approach. So a lot of schools have established sports programs to satisfy the value of athleticism. This is a good answer, but not the ultimate answer in my opinion, as it unintentionally reflects fundamental prerequisites required to both compete and stay safe on the sports field or when exercising. Such underlying components may include base level strength, ability to jump and land effectively and safely, effectively change direction safely as well, establish a base level of mobility and flexibility. The second area I just wanted to look at is fitting around academics. So understandably, a school's primary focus is academic education. So where might we fit this athletic plan into a daily or weekly schedule? Is it before school, lunch times, after school? In principle and on paper it is great, but there has to be a balance and a compromise to constructively accommodate the addition of an athletic plan that doesn't hinder the student. Next one we're just going to look at is funding and space. So school funding and space to perform such a plan. Does every school have bars, plates, bands, racks, benches or bars? And space to put these tools to perform the program? Does every school have a gymnasium at least to be able to set up this sort of equipment? Finally, just wanted to look at buy-in, which is arguably the most important obstacle. By this I mean school and staff. I appreciate teaching staff and sports coaches are not informed on this modern practice. So why might they want to introduce something that they aren't sure of? If we can build buy-in, that's going to be the most important part. So if there is no will to implement, then there will be no way for it to happen. Specialists like myself have to drive the passion and knowledge to make a program successfully work. So the next one I just want to look at is just a recent finding which relaxes any uncertainty about youth athletes performing resistance training, both from a sports performance perspective and a general health. So this is a position statement from the UKSCA, United Kingdom Strength and Conditioning Association of 2012. So the first text I just highlighted was relating to sports performance. So research has indicated that various forms of resistance training can elicit significant performance improvements in muscular strength, power production, running velocity, change of direction, speed, and general motor performance in youth. So all characteristics that heavily transfer to sports performance. Secondly, from a health perspective, evidence suggests that resistance training can make positive alterations in overall body composition, reduce abdominal and trunk fat, improve insulin sensitivity in overweight adolescents, and enhance cardiac function in obese children. And just below that, I've just starred, which I think is a very important point, can be quite obvious, but it is very important to highlight, is that any program that's being designed, it needs to be well designed and supervised by an experienced and qualified strength and conditioning specialist. So the last bit of this first part presentation is just looking at some of the more recent success stories. So the first one there, integrating strength and conditioning into the PE curriculum at secondary school. This was St. Peter's High School in Gloucester. They successfully implemented this curriculum back in 2015, and as far as I'm aware, has been flourishing ever since. The second one is the New Zealand schooling system. This is a much more recent paper. This is 2019, integrating resistance training into the high school curriculum. So both stories very successful. If you want to have a read of these in a little bit more detail, by all means just type these into Google Scholar or even email myself and I'm more than happy to forward them on to you. But what these show is that it's very possible, and where there is a will, there is a way. It requires a lot of passion, a lot of drive, and a lot of guidance. That is the end of section 1 of this presentation. I hope you enjoyed it and I hope you found it informative. If anyone wants to drop me a message querying anything that has been in this presentation or want to know a little bit more, by all means drop me an email at jackdaviessc@gmail.com. Alternatively, drop me a message on Twitter or LinkedIn. I will look to get my second part presentation out within the next few days. But until then, take it easy and thank you very much.